We're going to listen to Collin Vine, and he's the co-founder of Collin. And he wants to also do some daring things. He wants to basically make organizations more, redesign organizations and make it much easier to develop talent, organize people, and he has a good tool which you can use in old organizations or in new organizations. So the last speaker, Collin Vine.
Hi, everybody. It's always good to get a whole day where we can discuss the future of technology, some disruptive ideas, and how we can have practical use cases of this. Basically, a whole day on innovation. And I have some good news, but I also have some bad news today. The bad news is that with this whole day of optimism about the future of technology, I'm going to be a little bit more pessimistic. That's the bad news. The good news is that I'm going to suggest some ideas and some technology that maybe can make us optimistic again, or how we can think about what I'm going to talk about, which is the future of the firm. First, the bad news, though. Peter Thiel, just show of hands, people know who this man is. Peter Thiel was quoted saying that innovation in this country, America, is either at a standstill or dead. This feels counterintuitive. I started a company in San Francisco in 2011. It was a lot of hype around it. This doesn't feel right. But when you look at some of the data behind it, if you take a step back, and as opposed to just the technological lens, and you look at more of the macroeconomic lens, you start to think that maybe he's right. And I'm just going to run through some graphs up on the screen here to frame his perspective a little bit. This is a graph that shows the total firm size, total number of firms by firm age. And across time, you can see that really the only firm to increase in a percentage of total firms is firms 16 and older. So these older firms are actually becoming more dominant. This is a graph that shows a bit of a polarization of employment trends. You have employment numbers going towards these bigger, older firms. You kind of have a hollowing out of the middle, that there's less employment with smaller firms. And you actually do have an increase within freelancers, too. So you have this polarization of employment. And you also, this is really interesting, you actually have a deceleration of new company formation. So entrepreneurship is on the decline. This, again, doesn't seem very intuitive, but it's true. It's also true within the tech sector as well, that the total number of firms that are being created is decreasing. And so I think if you were to summarize this, it looks a little bit like a consolidation and a deceleration across a lot of different sectors. Information technology is actually the best one, absolutely, but even that is decelerating, especially within the number of firms being created as well. Steve Cohen, who's named one of the 100 greatest global thinkers, professor in economics, has called it a great stagnation. And this is also seen within the rate of growth of productivity, which has also been stagnant. I think this is a pretty complicated topic. I'm not an economist, so I can't talk too deeply on this. But one of the ways I think we can start to understand this is by looking at the roughly 400-year history of the corporation. So the corporation really began with around 1600, and the first version of it to about 1800. The next period from 1800 to 2000, I believe we're entering the next phase of the corporation from 2000 onwards. In the first phase, it was really these mercantilist corporations which were enormous. For example, the Dutch Trading Company. They largely ran on zero-sum economics, and their whole goal was to control trade by controlling land and space and sea. So colonizing space allowed them to control trade routes, and they were very successful in this and had a lot of money and a lot of power across many nations for about 200 years. But then the bubble on those types of corporations, or mercantilist style of corporation, began to pop around the 1800 with the rise of the Industrial Revolution. And now the shift in power, the type of corporation that we saw, shifted from these mercantilist ones to the more industrial ones. And this was especially true within America. This as an example would be the Pennsylvania Railroad Company, Ford Motor Company. These were different styles of corporations. As opposed to focusing and colonizing space, land and sea, they were colonizing time. Through innovations with scientists and engineers and a whole lot of tradespeople working together, they're able to innovate across a lot of different sectors: energy, transportation, communication. And this allowed them to free up people's time. No longer did you have to wash clothes with your hands. You could have a machine to do that, and allowed you instead to maybe listen to the radio, watch television. The savings in time allow them to capture people's attention. And that these style of corporations of mining people's time and freeing up their time to focus their attention on something else really was the dichotomy around consumers and producers. And now these style of corporations, the industrial corporation, mining time and grabbing people's attention, has lasted for about 200 years. But in about 1980, 1990, we saw that style decreasing. It was no longer as effective to find big pockets of available time and grab people's attention. Instead, it was becoming a lot more competitive to get people's attention. Instead of finding 1 hour of free time from replacing hand washing, you're competing for somebody's 1 hour of time. If you want them to read your article, you have to hope that they don't read somebody else's article. With the rise of the internet, everyone knows how bombarded we are with information and how scarce our attention really is. And so some people have called this peak attention. Much like we've reached peak oil production, we're at peak attention. And it's harder and harder to find new sources of time and attention for people to pay attention. So I would argue that we're entering into the next phase of the corporation, that this industrial corporation and the means that it was running on is no longer as effective. And so we're starting to see corporations play around with new organizational models, new ways to structure people, ways to try to tap into a global workforce. And so the question then is, what does the company of the future look like? If the mercantilist corporation gave rise to the industrial one, what will the industrial corporation give rise to next? And I think the future of the firm has these three attributes. It's going to be a lot more open, it's going to be much smarter, and far more collaborative, especially using technology like the blockchain where you can have a distributed ledger and smart contracts to help with this. So just quickly to run through these. Open corporations. So I think we understand that there's so much talent, both within organizations and then distributed throughout the world, but it's underutilized. One of our customers said this to us, that it's not about managing human resources, it's about discovering hidden resources. And the future of the firm is going to look a lot more open. Open internally, where you can break down the hierarchy and roles and departments and be able to tap into the talent within an organization and be able to track that and see who's doing what and open up opportunities, but also open externally, where you can push problems out to a truly global workforce and tap in to their skills and experience around the world. And this isn't too new. You're already starting to see incentive challenges where companies are posting problems out to the world and hoping that people can crowdsource on solutions to them. So I think the company in the future is going to be a lot more open. It's also going to be much smarter. We're going to have a lot of data, especially as companies can be able to integrate with technology like the blockchain to be able to find out who's doing what and understand the best way that people work together, what team they should be on, what task should go to the right person at the right time. And this is not going to come from management. This is going to come from technology. And companies will have this information and be able to apply it within their organization to move faster and to be able to open up to the talent that they have. So companies will be a lot smarter. And I also think we're going to be able to see companies that are a lot more collaborative, and maybe rise of new companies. Companies where anyone, anywhere, at any time can contribute to open projects, and then their contribution gives them a stake in that project in proportion to the work that they do. And it's like open source, where anyone can contribute, but you have a business model end there. Decentralized autonomous organizations, DAOs, this would be an example of a very collaborative project that people can work on. So again, another future of the organization. My company, Collin, is building technology for this. We are building technology for organizations to be more open, much smarter, and more collaborative. As we call them, it's a platform for internet organizations. And I want to walk you through what we're building. So we first have our underlying technology, which is the Collin governance protocol. This is a network of Ethereum-based smart contracts, so on the Ethereum blockchain. And it has rules for things like voting, share distribution, reputation and performance management, remuneration. So companies, whether already existing firms or brand new ones, can be able to use this technology to open their organization up, again, open internally and be able to track who's doing what, make sure that the right tasks are going to the right people, and also be able to manage their organizations in a more intelligent way. We also have a front-end user interface, which will make it very easy for anyone to access technology. So Colony is a project. You can actually think about it in similar as an analogy of Git in GitHub, if people are familiar with that. Git, open source technology that anyone can access through the command line. GitHub, a user interface for being able to access this. So Colony is doing something similar. We have the underlying governance protocol, which is on the blockchain. This is going to be open source and available to anybody, and we'll have the Colony platform, which will make it easy for any company, any person to be able to access this technology. So just a quick run through of how this will work. I truly believe that every company should have their own Colony, a hub where you can add people either within your organization or externally that you can push and pull work out to, and then track who's doing what and sign off in it. And you can either then issue payments to people, or this can be a way to track who within your current corporation is doing what, maybe outside of their current capacity. For individuals, you'll be able to see people create or contribute to organizations online, and the work that they do earns them a reputation score. The reputation gives them influence within that organization to be able to control votes and direction. So I think the summary is that it seems like the type of corporation is changing, and there's going to be a future of the firm. While we don't exactly know what that'll look like, that technology will play a role, and it'll most likely be a lot more open, smarter, and collaborative. And probably the best thing for you to do if you have a company or thinking of starting one is to just start experimenting with this new technology, with this new way of organizing people, with new ways of structuring your organization so that you can enter into this future of the organization. Thank you.
Okay, that was another nice big idea. But I mean, I like it that you are a little bit more inclusive in who's participating in the company. You know, it's not only the employees and everybody outside, you're more inclusive. But what really is so new about it? What really, I mean, you first need a model of the firm, a thinking model, and then you need IT to support it. What really is the advantage of using blockchain instead of other databases to do that the same model as you do?
Yeah, I think, so why are we using blockchain?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think two reasons. One is that you have companies that have tried this before that were centralized. Quirky is one, Assembly is one, if anyone's heard of those. And both of them have crashed and are dead. And what's happened is that any of the projects that have been started on top of those centralized corporations are now gone with them. And so we don't want to position ourselves in that type of way where we're a centralized hub that you can use this technology to enable your corporation, that if we go under, so do you. But I think truly for these more collaborative organizations where anyone can contribute, you need this distributed ledger so that if you, there's an organization that we're in conversations with called RLoop. Just to run you through this quick. They're part of the Hyperloop project, competing, and they made it to the very final stage of Elon Musk's SpaceX's Hyperloop project.
Yeah.
Entirely formed through a Reddit thread. There's anywhere from 150 to 450 people contributing to this, and they're largely using Slack and Trello. They have no clue who's doing anything, and more, now that they've crowdsourced some money, there's a whole lot of trust going on that hopefully the person who's responsible for the money is doing what they're saying they're doing. And what they're looking to have is a more open way to actually see and allow this open organizational model, but to be able to trust the people involved by not needing to trust them. So I think that's the second reason. Okay,
so it's really, you have employees or people who work together on a project don't need to trust because the rules are clear in how you basically contribute to a certain job and how the money is divided up. And blockchain or Ethereum blockchain helps it, is more internally built into that kind of system.
Yeah.
Is that it? Okay, what is your business model? When do you get paid?
Yeah, so we have an internal prototype, and we should be doing a beta very, very soon. Our go-to-market is with digital agencies. And so there's two pieces to the business model. The first is it's going to look much like a SaaS business model. GitHub is an example, where companies who want to stay private, so would have their own private data, blockchain, they'll pay us a subscription fee per members. The other one, if it's completely open, we won't charge a subscription fee at all, but there will be an emergent marketplace. So you'll have a lot of individuals, freelancers, for example, and organizations. And any task that happens within the marketplace, there'll be a fee that'll go to the we have a Colony Foundation, actually, which is nonprofit for the development of the technology on the blockchain space. So the transaction fee from marketplace tasks will go to that.
So even in that model, you're not interested in, you get paid to develop the technology, but it's a foundation, so you're not into shares and basically sell it for a huge amount of money. Is that
I mean,
you have started different companies, right? And you have sold companies. Are you in this business to create a fantastic solution and to sell the solution? Or is that's really difficult because it's so open and so based on the blockchain?
Both.
Both.
Yeah, I mean, so the Colony governance protocol is going to be open source, and we'll have the foundation responsible for that. But our application is going to be closed source. So we have a registered company in the UK. And our business model is slightly different from that, but absolutely, we want to be able to earn revenue.
Make a lot of money. Okay.
Well, I mean, like solve problems.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Okay.